Happy day, everybody, and welcome back to Mortgage Talk and More. I'm your host, Mark Harrison. I'm very, very excited to have a friend of mine on again who was on the show about a year ago, Alan, as I recall.
Yep, about a year.
And I got a lot of comments around that, and I thought, well, it's time to kind of renew that conversation and re-up it and kind of talk about the market. And I wanted him to introduce himself in just a second. But first of all, before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about mortgage rates, because the big news of the week was the Federal Reserve dropped rates by 0.5% of the federal funds rates. Now, people get confused about that. They think that the Fed controls mortgage rates, and they don't control mortgage rates. They control a thing called the federal funds rates, which is the big one. That's the key indicator of interest rates direction. And mortgage rates have actually fallen about 1.25 points since last year, which is very, very attractive to people who are now in the market to buy. But I do want to let people know, if you're going to track mortgage rates, do this. Watch the 10-year Treasury yield. That is sort of the main thing that mortgage-backed securities are based on. Not the only thing, but that's the main thing. And right now, the 10-year is around 3.7. So your 30-year fix is usually around the average yield of the 10-year Treasury plus 2.4. So that would put rates around 6% on a conventional rate. Having said that, I did lock in a veteran at 5.25. So the interest rates have come down quite a bit since last year, and just want to throw that out there. Now, back to my guest, a man I've known for several years. I've done personal business with him, and he's got a big law practice here in town, Alan Ceshker. Tell us about Alan Ceshker. Now, he's got some allergies today, so be patient.
I do. All right. About me, I'm not too good about talking about me.
Come on.
I usually say I'm a 30-plus year attorney, and I think I stopped counting about 3 or 4 years ago, so maybe it's 33, 34 years. But the law office is actually there to support our title office. I've been focusing on title work since 2003, and so I'm captured counsel for my title clients now.
Okay, and all that's been in Austin?
Yep. Well, no, we have Dallas office and then a Houston closing office also.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've been in Austin a long time.
Yep. Yeah. I moved back here in 2001.
Okay.
And been here since. Yeah.
All right. And I've known your name for years and years. And we met formally probably 4 or 5 years ago through an investor group I'm involved in. You do a lot of work with.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that. But as most people know, after a while on the show, I handle traditional mortgage financing, FHA loans, VA, conventional. And you're more in the creative space around that. And I want to kind of talk about what you do, because people need to know this. This is very important.
Especially now. And recent past, but it's a fantastic option or solution when our conventional mortgage isn't working for us,
right?
Or like we have when they're in the 7s and 8s, people don't want to get a mortgage. So the stuff that we do is now a solution for all of them.
Mm-hmm. But it has been for a long time, I guess. In some way, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. So we're talking about mortgage wraps essentially. And in 2007, 2008, during that recession, there weren't mortgages. It wasn't an interest rate issue. It was we ain't getting no mortgages.
There's no money.
Yeah. And so I saw what was going on and quickly pivoted over to the seller finance arena.
Mm-hmm.
And then when things came back and got back to normal, I just stayed there. And the other title offices moved back over to the conventional stuff, and we stay in what I call the creative finance arena.
Mm-hmm. You can do traditional closings too, though.
Yeah. My joke is I can the creative stuff is blindfold juggling on a unicycle. We can also just ride a unicycle too.
Yeah. There's only a few. You're probably the top attorney in town that handles this kind of work.
We are.
I would think so.
Just because we've been focused on it so long and so heavy. So there's others. There's a big one out of Dallas and a medium one out of San Antonio. Here, the local people here may know of the Wally wrap, and so he's been doing
that. Goes way back.
It does, and it's people will call me and say, "Do you do a Wally wrap?" And my answer is no. I do an Allen wrap. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, we got to bring a new lingo to the marketplace.
Yeah.
But in what we've seen over the last couple of years in Austin, now it's different around the country, because I have a lot of friends around the markets, and the markets are fairly strong. There's low inventory, but in Austin, Texas, there's a lot of inventory. For whatever reason, we have several. I mean, I don't know, 12 or 13,000 listings or something like that.
Yeah. The Austin market's always a little bit different.
Yep.
And with our office, As the conventional stuff goes up, usually your investment stuff's going down, and then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So we stay flat, but good flat. And so
Right.
we're blessed. We're lucky.
You talking about Austin in general?
Austin? Yeah. Dallas is a little bit different. It's going a little bit quicker up there than down here.
Right. So tell us about why people choose your strategy, your formula, if you will, to sell or buy property.
So
I think it's ingenious, but I know a little bit about it, but I want to know more.
Yeah. So the biggest use for it is traditionally the investor side, but with the market doing what it's been doing, we have what I call consumer wraps. That's end user seller to end user buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's grassroots efforts to go out there and educate the agents that this seller finance is not only good, it's legal,
mm-hmm.
and it's a fantastic solution for those properties that have been on market for a long time and had some price reductions. Well, it's time to see if our seller finance option will get some activity going.
Okay.
And it's been fantastically successful.
Great. Well, walk us through the structure of a wrap. Tell us on how it works.
So I like to keep things simple. So a mortgage wrap is just seller financing of a property.
Okay.
And we happen to not pay off the mortgage.
Okay.
So if you can ignore not paying off the mortgage, you can conceptualize these things much easier, and the way you should, because the not paying off that mortgage is really not an issue at all.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would be an issue. It sounds like it'd be wrong or unethical,
right.
But it's not. And these have been around for 50, 60, 70 years or so. And so it's nothing new that we're creating. Now we're creating proprietary structures and systems and things like that. So for example, in the consumer wraps, we don't want anything going wrong. And so there's a due on sale clause issue, for example, very, very low risk issue,
mm-hmm.
but we want to try to get it to a 0%. So
okay.
we're using a trust structure on those consumer wraps, and I don't want to get too complicated.
Yeah, not too technical,
but
tell us what due on sale means, so people.
Yeah, I'm sorry
if they don't know what that means.
Yep. So due on sale clauses allows a mortgage company to call the entire note due if you sell their collateral, like we are selling their collateral.
Okay.
And so the Texas legislature has mortgage wrap legislation in place, been in place since January 1, 21. And they specifically decided it's a don't ask, don't tell transaction. We're not advising the mortgage company. We're not getting authorization from the mortgage company.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they did that, the senator that was sponsoring the bill didn't want to stop mortgage wraps, just wanted them to be done correctly.
Yeah.
And so it's counterintuitive. A lot of people say, well, that's illegal, that's unethical, what have you. And they just don't understand the full aspects of it. It's not illegal and it's not unethical.
Yeah.
It's me selling my property seller finance like I'm able to.
Yeah. In an example, let's say that, what you call it, consumer to consumer a minute ago? Or?
Yeah, consumer. It's end user seller, end user buyer.
Okay. And so let's assume for a minute that I owned a home. I actually bought a house in 2021, another house. Anyway, we have 2 3/4 rate on that.
Oh.
Okay. And I owe about 160. And it's probably worth about 500. Let's say I wanted to sell it, and tell me how. And let's say this market's slow, and I'm not getting a lot of interest on it. What would I do with you?
So what I suggest is when you go out there and offer this thing seller finance, you're below the current market rate.
Yeah,
that's going to get
quite a bit right now on that one.
Yeah, but you're going to set it at a higher interest rate and cash flow on that thing.
Okay.
So it'd be better if you had a ton of equity in there, because you're now using someone else's money to arbitrage and make money on that.
Okay.
It's not bad that you have a lot of equity in it, but you're probably going to set that thing somewhere, 5.5% interest rate.
Okay.
And you can have whatever term you want, 3-year, 5-year, 10, 30. What we're seeing on the consumer wraps is 3 years. And so they're going to need to refinance.
Balloon, if you will.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't want it to be a 30-year product for these people.
Yeah.
It's a stopgap. Let's get a sale done. When the interest rates come down, they'll refi and get out.
Sure. So in this case, I say, well, market it for 500,000. You put down $100,000. We'll finance the 400,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so when you're drafting the contract for that, the TREC 1 to 4 contract, there's no mention of that mortgage ever. And that's why I say people should just consider this to be seller financing and stop getting stuck on the mortgage not being paid off. So in your situation, you'd end up with a third-party loan servicing company that's collecting the payment from your buyer.
Okay.
And then they pay the underlying mortgage. and then send you your cash flow amount.
Okay.
And
Is
so,
there a fee for? I assume there's a fee for that.
yeah, I think they
mean,
charge $40 a month or so,
Okay.
and so it's usually pushed on to the buyer.
Okay. All right. I was curious. I wasn't even aware of that. I was worried about the servicing.
Yeah, and you don't have to get a third-party loan servicing company. I sometimes do, sometimes don't on mine. But when you're dealing with the consumer, what I call consumer reps, it's best to get that loan servicing company in place.
Especially their escrowing for taxes and insurance.
They'll collect the dollars. If it's late, they'll send out a default notice, and they manage that escrow account also.
Okay. And when it comes to, in this case, let's assume, worst case, that they quit making payments. The foreclosure process is the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. So I always say, me as a seller finance seller, I'm a lender, and I've got the same rights Wells Fargo does.
Okay.
And the foreclosure process in Texas is considered to be extremely short as compared to the rest of the nation.
What, one missed payment?
Oh yeah, you can start on day one, and then you can be finished by 41 days recovering that property. And so I want all my buyers to succeed. I don't want to recover the property, but if I do have to recover the property, then from a dollar standpoint, it's very good.
Yeah.
So you would keep that $100,000 down payment, just turn it around, go sell it
And
again.
do it again.
Yeah. So again, I don't want them to fail. It's not my business model to try to get that property back. But if it's forced in that direction, then I'm good dollar wise.
Yeah. Yeah. So doing the math again, let's assume that I do this on this condo and I charge 4 3/4 just to make the math easy. So I've got a 2% spread on the arbitrage there. Plus the extra equity that I'm financing. So you cash flow. I could cash flow and I still make the mortgage payments, correct?
You're going to cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to sell my house eventually, seller finance wrap, and depending on the sale price, right now it looks as if I'll cash flow about $1,800 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so you take that 1,800, go apply that to your new mortgage that you're getting at 5.9% or 6%. That's going to lower your net interest rate.
By a lot.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's what there's a mortgage guy out there that has grassroots efforts to teach agents about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. He has his charts there that show now you're paying an effective interest rate of 2.75 over here as opposed to the 6 or what have you.
Yeah. Ryan Leahy was so his name out there because I've had Ryan on the show actually.
Okay.
Talking about that particular strategy, kind of like what you do on the legal side of it. You handle the closings and all that sort of thing and all the paperwork.
We do. He and I work together for 3-4 months getting his structure in place because it's a little bit different. It's not an investor transaction, so needs to be more protection set up. And so he's got a pretty good product that we've created.
Good. Now let's talk about investors for a minute. We're starting to see those guys come around more and more even now. Is the structure the same or is anything different around it?
It's essentially the same. I mean, 95% of it's the same. We do some items with the investors so that if the seller goes away, they're able to function. So access to the mortgage, contact information, power of attorney to sign off on checks that are issued, escrow refunds or insurance claims, things like that. We don't have that in the consumer wraps because buyer and seller are around. So we need anything in the future, we're going to have both of them.
Yeah.
But you need to contemplate your seller going MIA and living in Madagascar or something. So there's some protections there for the investors, but the structure's
fundamentally the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And where that would come into play for investors is it on my end of the business, we're a little bit limited on how many loans we can make to one individual.
Right.
So, and I think it's 10 units or something like that. 10
I think
loans for people who want to buy rental properties. So that'd be a great strategy for people who either can't qualify for traditional financing or just have too many.
Yeah. My story is a client of mine said, hey, I've got about $500,000. I want to go purchase 1 or 2 properties, outside Austin area a little bit. And I said, well, why don't we go purchase 100? And so he laughs, kind of like you're laughing.
Yeah.
But the dollars that I'm coming into the projects are anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not spending more than $30,000 to get into acquire a property via wrap, and then I immediately go seller finance it via wrap. I don't want to keep rentals or don't want to do fix and flips, but any exit strategy will work after you acquire the property via wrap. It's just I choose to seller finance. And that's my cash flow.
Is that sort of so it's not really a fix and flip because you're not really fixing it up.
Correct.
But tell me how you're making money on that. I don't really understand.
So I'll give you an example of one in Bell County. Purchased, I think, around 185. This is a decade ago, and then immediately sold it at 215.
You bought for 185.
Yep.
Okay.
Sold it for 215. They brought $4,000 more down than I had put down.
Okay.
So I'm already 4,000 in the black.
Good. Okay.
And then my payment was $1,400, and the payment they were paying to me was $1,900. So it cash flowed $500. So it's not a ton of money, but when you have 100 of those properties,
You do it a little while. Yeah.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So there's folks around Austin that have 300-400 units, and so they're having a good time each month.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are you seeing people where maybe that you don't really pay attention to it so much, but where do you see in this market people are buying?
You mean location or how?
No, mainly a location. Do you track that at all?
A bit. The consumer wraps that we're talking about, those are closing, interior Austin and around. And they're not, cheap properties. Lowest one we've done is 600,000 all the way up to $3.2 million mortgage wrap. And so we found that the higher end users are actually a little bit more receptive to this. They see the numbers, they know what's going on. But for the investors, you're getting outside Austin.
Yeah.
And so Bell County is hot right now.
Seems like it.
Yeah. And you can get
even
down to
Killeen and Jarrell, places like that.
Yeah.
That's where we're starting to see a lot of investors.
I've got 2 properties in Jarrell.
Okay.
And then San Antonio is also good. I pause a little bit because I don't get down there. It's very spotty and patchy. You can have a $87,000 mobile home next to a $2 million house.
Interesting.
So I'm not going to play down there, but there are people who are very successful down there.
Yeah. And Houston's kind of the same way. Their zoning laws are pretty liberal.
Yeah.
For sure.
If they exist.
If they exist at all. I don't even think they exist.
I used to work down there, and we constantly had properties edging over to the next door neighbor's property,
right.
Slipping over, and HOAs were fun to deal with.
Oh Lord.
Harris County's fun. Travis County's better.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned just a minute ago that the minimum was $600,000. That's a pretty nice sized transaction, up to 3.2 million. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Well, so Ryan's targeting specific properties. So he wants to higher end properties.
Sure. And
then what he's doing is looking for 120 days on market, looking for price reduction, because that seller's motivated. They need to sell.
Yeah.
And so if the real estate agent doesn't know about the mortgage wrap opportunity, Ryan's teaching them.
Yeah.
So they're doing a little bit of end user education, the seller education, but they're mainly going to the real estate agents and saying, hey, this thing you've heard about that your broker sometimes says you can't do, it can be done. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Amen. And I'm starting to do the same thing with Ryan. We've got a little agreement around some of that, but that's aside. But when it comes to, like you mentioned before the show, and I thought this was an interesting statement about realtors. A lot of properties that they're going to expire their listings. They just don't sell.
Yeah.
And talk about why realtors really need to know this as a service to their client.
Yeah, it needs to be another arrow in your quiver that you have. It needs to be something that it should have been taught. It
should be taught in school.
Yeah.
Real estate class.
Law school now teaches about mortgage wraps.
Really?
Finally. Yeah. But what I would, if I was an owner, I'm trying to sell my property, and man, I've got to get out here. I've got a job relocation, what have you. And it's just sitting there days on market. And then that expires. And a realtor came over to me and said, hey, have you tried seller financing? I said, no, I've got a mortgage. I can't seller finance. Well, actually you can. And then we go out there and list that thing. And now that sells. It makes the first agent look negligent.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you don't know this, I think it's a disservice to your client.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of people out there for one reason or another that can't qualify for traditional financing. And this opens up a whole pool of new prospects for your property.
Yeah. And far better than I do, but someone can be, cash rich, but just may have started a business recently, or there could be some technical aspect, not a credit reporting issue,
not an issue with credit.
And that's one of the ones we closed. Was someone was cash rich, and it's a $2 million plus house. Their loan fell through, and then Ryan rolled in, brought this mortgage wrap transaction. It was a short-term thing. I think 6 months is all they needed. And so it's a tool that you can use.
Yeah. Well, we got a few minutes still left, but before we get further into it, let people know how to get a hold of you or how you want to be contacted. If they have questions, or I know you've got a team there for you.
You bet. So easiest way to get us is just go to the website, which is ceshker.com, Ceshker.com. And then that'll have all of our contact information. Got point people that you get with first. You're probably going to have some questions. And I'm fine scheduling time to talk with the agents, especially if they just got under contract and buyer or seller has a right to terminate as soon as we understand this thing. We can just drop in on a Zoom call and talk about it. But yeah, Ceshker.com is the easiest way.
And where's the name Ceshker come from? You're the only one I've ever known.
No. If you have that last name Ceshker, you're genetically attached to me. And the story's kind of neat. My great grandfather jumped off a German warship when it parked up there in New York before we entered World War I.
Wow.
And he was trying to switch sides.
Yeah.
And so rolled in and he said Zoshki, and they wrote down Ceshker, and you don't complain or argue. You just take it. You take it and go to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Is what you do.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's actually Zoshki.
Okay. Were you raised in Wisconsin?
No. The Wisconsin Ceshkers, my granddad was a pilot, came down here to Texas. So Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Harrison's sort of the same way. They came out of Scotland. These brothers named Harrison, so we're all related, So
oh, really?
We call it kids or cuz. Maybe find another one, but anyway, what else should we know before we get wrap this thing up? Let's talk about whatever we need to talk about.
Well, so best thing to know, if there's a real estate agent who wants to learn about this stuff, just reach out to us, and we have a litany of material we can ship out.
Okay.
Probably want to use Ryan's tool if it's a consumer wrap transaction.
Sure.
If it's just an individual, someone wants to invest or what have you, then we can handle all that. The communication and education that Ryan provides, buyer, seller, buyer agent, seller agent, is more than we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his business now.
Yeah.
And so he's a great thing to plug in between us and the consumer wrap folks. But if you want to learn more, just reach out, and we have a little short 15-page FAQ document we can send out, and that'll let you go to sleep nice and easy.
Yeah. Now, I know you do a lot of classes for real estate professionals, training on this for them. Are you doing anything in the consumer space around teaching consumers around it?
Yeah. So if there's any real estate brokers out there, I got a CE certified course. I call it Investing Knowledge for Realtors.
Okay.
It's not, at first Trek thought I was trying to teach realtors how to go invest. And that's a no. Apparently, they don't allow any of that teaching to go on, which I think is weird. I had to tell them, no, we're teaching realtors how to represent and help their clients via investing knowledge. And so 1 hour CE course on that, and it's pretty darn good. And it includes a big chunk of the mortgage wrap information.
Okay, good. Well, I'll keep that in mind, because you presented it in front of a group. I had it for a lunch and learn too.
Someone just emailed me, I think last night, and said, I was over at Mark's event that you spoke at, and said you could help me with X, Y, or Z.
Oh, that's cool.
I thought the timing of that was kind of funny.
We got to do that again.
Yeah, let's do. And I like cover 3. That was a good place.
Let's re-up on that, because usually starting in the fall, I start my classes back on my lunch and learn. So you'll be my first guest again.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah. So is there anything else people need to know about these wraps, these seller financings, that besides the due on sale and some of that?
So if you're in the investing arena, the answer is yes, because once you do 3 in a 12-month period, a whole bunch of new rules come into play.
Oh.
And the legislature was smart, and they said, all right, if you're selling your homestead and that's just all you're doing, you're fine.
Okay.
And they actually contemplated people that might sell 2 homestead in 1 year period. So you don't have to comply with those things that the investors do. But once you dip above your 3rd one, you're going to have to give me a call, and we're going to sit down and structure
in 1 year.
In
12 months.
12-month rolling period.
Okay. And what is the rule around that?
So
explain that a little bit.
You're going to have to use what you'll know the term, an RMLO.
Yeah.
So they have to go out and have a mortgage professional come and start doing ability to repay analysis.
Okay.
Your disclosures are going to be substantially more. The type of mortgage you can put in place, interest rate, prepayment penalty, balloon, things of those nature are going to be regulated and change. So
Really?
yeah, it's a whole different world.
Let's say you have just one that you did. Is there any rules around interest rate? Are there usury laws or things that,
You know, the only
hard
one
money lenders?
the only one I know of is you'd be capped at 18%.
18.
But no one's
No,
doing 18%.
No.
The highest consumer interest rate that I've seen is 9.9. I guess they wanted to avoid the double digits.
Okay.
So we're not eking up to hard money interest rates, 12 or what have you.
Yeah. And that's a good point because, if somebody's credit's not so good, maybe you do want to charge a little bit more for the risk because there is some risk.
Yeah.
It's not risk-free.
There's risk in every real estate transaction.
Sure.
First off, as long as you manage the due on sale clause like we are, then it's the same risk as if you were selling seller finance and you own the property free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a lot of additional risk,
No.
but it needs to be managed. And you got to close with the right office. And I'm not trying to get on here and win business, but I am advising not every attorney knows how to do this.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And some high level real estate attorneys don't understand it either. It's just not their area of practice.
I saw a speaker in New Orleans last week named Ed Milet. I don't know if you know Ed Milet's work, but he's anyway, he has this quote. He says, winning is more fun than fun is fun.
I like that. I like that.
I like it too. I'm gonna end with that. We're gonna wrap this thing
Good.
up. But man, I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge around this. It's really important people need to know. So
Well, I appreciate you letting me get on.